This video is talking about how to level the RV. We're going to talk about how to level it using the automatic level system. But out here what we're going to do is talk about the pieces that you would need to aid in leveling. So the best thing to do is have a campsite that is concrete. Most of the campsites that are concrete base are going to be fairly flat. The next thing would be asphalt. If you're parking on asphalt, it may not be as level as a concrete pad. And of course, in the worst situation is trying to just park in an open area where the ground is definitely not level. So let's talk about the things that you need to do to try to get this thing level. So my RV has an automatic leveling system. We have 4 hydraulic pads that sits on the ground. So with those hydraulic pads, if you're on concrete, in most cases the pads can sit directly on the concrete. If the concrete pad is not quite level, the pads, the hydraulic pads that sit down, they can only go down about 8 inches the most. And what we want to make sure is that you have enough stroke, enough distance for those pads to drop down and level the RV. So what we really need to do is you might use some of these blocks. These are height blocks that I place underneath the pads so that the pads do not have to actuate or go all the way down to lift this RV up. So I've got in the RV these blocks, and what you do is you place these blocks under the hydraulic pad and then do the self-level. And that's what I suggest to do. At least put 1 to 2 blocks, depending upon really the slope of where you're trying to set up and trying to get level. So let's take a look. Let me take the phone real quick, the video, and I am just going to angle it. I'm just going to angle it sideways. I'm going to show you one of the pads. So that's one of the hydraulic pads. What I would do is, I would take and I would slide the block under the pad before I tried to level it. So let's put those pads back. And you've got situations where your parking is just not going to be level. And we need to do something on the outside to make sure to help the vehicle. You can never lift the RV off of the pad itself. You do not want the front tires to be lifted up off of the pad. You don't want the back tires to be lifted up off the pad. How we resolve that is on the back, on the 2 hydraulic pads, we're going to put more blocks under it if we need to, that we just talked about a minute ago. If we're finding that the front of the vehicle lifts off of your pad, they're going to use these levelers. What we're trying to do is drive our front wheel upon this level, and we're going to either park on level 1, 2, or 3 so that we make sure that the wheels of the front of the vehicle is not floating in the air. That can damage it, and that truly is too much money for anybody to want to try to repair. So if you notice that the vehicle's not level, you've got a really big issue in trying to gain level on the RV in the front, just put that under the front. I'm going to put this other one where you can't see it. I'm going to put it under the other tire. And make sure somebody's watching. But what you want to do is drive up on this shelf itself. Drive up on either level 1, 2, or 3 until the unit is somewhat level. You want to make sure that somebody's out here with you watching. So if you're in the driver's seat, someone needs to be standing not in front of the vehicle, but to the side where they can see the tire and they can tell you to stop. And make sure that the driver understands hand signals. Decide up front what your hand signals are. Either stop or closed fist means stop. So as you're driving up onto the ramp, you get to the level you need, your spotter is going to say stop. And you stop, you put on the park brake, you turn off the engine, then you go back and you try the hydraulic system to level the RV. So this is the way that you drive up onto the ramps. We stopped on level 3 because in my driveway, it's definitely built for drainage. It definitely slopes. And so I need to drive up to level 3. So next thing we're going to do, put a couple of pads on the back. Then we're going to demonstrate the auto level. So let's talk about a situation in leveling the RV, which we had to park the front wheels on the highest ramp. So if you park the front wheels on the highest setting of the ramp, you definitely want to put the pads underneath the hydraulic level system. So I'm using 3 on this side since I've went up 3 on the pad itself. And then definitely I put in at least 2 on the driver's side because I noticed that this situation I have more height that I need to raise up on the passenger side. So in the back I've also put in 2 blocks, and I put in 2 blocks for each pad. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to start the leveling process. This is a process that is automatic. It's going to sense the level of the RV, and in doing so, it's going to level it out flat without you having to do any manual types of settings. The thing we have to do when we're going to level the system is we've got to start the vehicle and we've got to put the parking brake on. It won't even attempt to level if we don't do those 2 things. So let's start. Let's go in here. So let's go ahead and get in and we'll start her up. So this is definitely the Ford key. I'm gonna put it into ignition. Always like to put my foot on the brake. Just a habit of mine. I think it's a good one. I'm gonna put the parking brake on. So that's the parking brake fully engaged. Here's the parking brake release right there. So let's start it up. Okay. I'm gonna go around and show you the leveling system. So one of the videos shows you all of the items on this, what I call the master control panel. But what we're going to do is look at the electronic leveling system. I'm going to turn it on. I'm going to read that the jacks are up. We want to make sure the jacks are up. We're going to say later that when you're about ready to leave, you've got to make sure that you retract and it says the jacks are up. So notice that we're getting a flash on the right. So it's leaning to the right. And if we go over here to the kitchen, we've got a level that we can see, but the level definitely is not anywhere as accurate as the system itself. So what we're going to do is we're going to go into an auto level mode. When you push auto level, it gives you about 2 to 3 seconds. Those seconds is what you need to go out that door and be on the concrete with no one in the RV. So it has a real sensitive system of leveling. If you walk, it's going to reshift weight. It's going to feel that weight, and it's going to try to level according to the shifting weight. So what we want to do definitely is get down here. We're down onto the bottom step. I hit auto level. So it's talking about grounding the jacks. It'll tell us to stay still. What I want to do is show you the system. See, the jack is already down. Even though the jack's down, it doesn't mean that it's level yet. It's still doing its final adjustments. So it's dropping the 2 forward jacks. Then it has the back jack. Both of those dropped. And we'll just watch from the door. And it still says, please wait. It's still auto leveling. There we go. It's really trying to level. See, notice now we have a flashing green light. It's still analyzing. It's going to tell us eventually that it is complete. See, we have now the success light. Once we have success, we see that the jacks are down. We're going to turn the leveling system off. So definitely we see that the RV is up a little bit. Definitely up. The front jacks are up. And in this situation, the front tires would have been off the ground if I hadn't used the ramp. But that's definitely how you level the RV. The RV is ready for us to extend what would be the slide out wall. We'll be extending that next. So what we do at this point, we just go ahead and we turn off the motor. We make sure then we're hooked to electric so that we can definitely do the extension of the wall.